Yeah, so based upon where you're at, like again, that soil mixture, lot of locations have like landscaping companies or local nurseries, right? So you can approach them about what does it cost to purchase like a raised bed mix or soil mixture that I can use for container gardens, right? And they can. All right. I'm back.
Good afternoon, Mr. Farmer Fredo.
What's going on, Blake? How you doing?
Pretty good. So today is episode 6.
Wow, 6, man. We rolling, ain't we?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
so the topic of today is where's the best place to start at home. So I have 2 questions for you.
Okay. But before we get started, we're going to introduce something new to the podcast. For those that are watching, is always kind of show you what we're doing in the community to make food more accessible. So on display today, we kind of have what we call our self-watering garden bucket.
Cool.
So we utilize this to teach people how to grow food. It's going to really tie into our topic. But the idea is that a lot of people are always asking us questions on how often to water, how long should we water, and it gets really complicated. So this system here, by using 2 buckets and what we call a wicker system, allows for you to water from the top, and it fills up to a certain point at the bottom, and it basically is like a straw that sucks water up from the top, from the bottom, and allows the roots to go downward. And it's just a simple thing that we use just to teach people how to grow food, but it also kind of duplicates Earth's natural system, because underneath the Earth, even though we can't see it, are like running waters. That's why a lot of trees and fruits and soil health is important to try to get everything to start growing downward. So this is like something that we utilize again out into the community to make growing food more accessible. So like this one here, I just started some baby collard plants. So within about a month or so, they'll be ready to harvest, so we could give it to somebody in need to grow food on their backyard. So again, like I said, it just ties into, I always want to make sure people know what we're actually doing in the community, and hopefully it's something that you guys will be interested in. You can reach out to us and in the comment section for how to build it and do it yourself sort of stuff and things like that.
Sweet. And we should do a DIY tutorial video on that pretty soon.
I agree. Do that and put out the whole PDF and instructions and everything, so you can kind of take it around the world. Like everybody can find a 5-gallon bucket and
That's awesome.
Get started. Yeah.
Well, sweet. So going into our first question today, we have, if my phone will unlock to give me the questions.
Okay.
So
protection is good.
We have. So should you use raised bed gardens, or should you do traditional in-ground?
Okay. It's a couple different factors.
Okay.
So first factor is your location. Can't just say go this way or go that way, because it's all about where you stay at, right? Like if you are at an apartment complex or you're renting a piece of property, you do not really want to tear up the ground as much. So you probably want something that can be replaced, that you can move, keep everything returning back to normal, and then also your economics. So starting a raised bed garden, there's costs that are involved. You have the cost of the lumber or whatever material you're using for the container aspect of it. You have the cost of bringing in the inputs of your soil mixture that you need to fill the boxes up. So you have to factor those in just to get started. Then versus in-ground, again, you're just clearing out a space in your backyard or area, but you also have to think in terms of that space on what is the soil condition, and so with the soil condition on in-ground, you have to do what we call get a soil test, and that's basically scooping up areas of soil in the plot that you want to grow, send it to a university lab, and they give you the results to see where it's lacking or where it's more of a particular nutrients or minerals into your soil that'll determine if you need to amend it, or if you need to put something to amend it as well, to take something down in order for your plants to grow.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more science that's involved in in-ground planting than what most people realize, versus a raised bed box where you pretty much control the soil mixture, so it's planted and ready to go.
Cool.
And then also you have to figure out your watering system. A lot of times if you are doing in-ground, watering, you have to be conscious of that if you use like an overhead watering system, that it waters everything. And being that it waters everything is also going to, because you're turning up the soil, you're also wakening up weed seeds or your seed bed.
Yeah.
And then what happens is now you got weed and grass growing in your in-ground plot, and it's just a whole nother thing you have to deal with and tend to. So just kind of being mindful versus a raised bed, which tends to be more weedless because you brought all the soil in and things like that, which should be weed free, just makes it easier. But then again, the next thing, you got the weed, the space. You also have to think about what you want to grow too, because you're kind of limited in the varieties that you can offer in a container system versus what you could do like in ground, because in ground you're able to plant like more in a smaller space. Like corn, you can get a lot more corn planted than you can in a raised box, right? Or you can get more peas planted in ground versus in a raised box. But you might be be beneficial for you to do a raised box if you're like, hey, I just you're Blake, so you love peppers, right?
Yeah.
Like peppers is your thing. You don't need a 20 by 20 spot for like peppers because they're going to keep producing bam, 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 right?
Yeah.
So you could be all right with like a smaller raised bed container that has like 3 or 4 pepper plants in it because they're going to keep producing.
Cool.
Once you keep watering it, keep feeding it, they're going to keep giving you those jalapenos and those habaneros that you like and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of say all that to say it's like, we just sit down, we have a conversation based upon what you have. But the last really key factor I should have started with first is how much sunlight do you have in that space even to start with? Because if you don't have an adequate like 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight, you're going to be shooting yourself in the foot. Well, the only thing that you really can grow are like leafy greens and lettuce because they don't require as much sunlight as a tomato plant or a squash or cucumber.
Cool. So it sounds like the raised bed's probably the best way to go
For a beginner.
It is a little more expensive, I think, but as a beginner, it might be better.
Yeah.
So in one of your videos, I saw you had like a huge dump truck came in and dumped soil everywhere. How would I do it? Could I just go to, I guess, not to,
Right,
but
right.
Go to the store and grab?
Yeah, so based upon where you're at, like again, that soil mixture, a lot of locations have like landscaping companies or local nurseries, right? So you can approach them about what does it cost to purchase like a raised bed mix or soil mixture that I can use for container gardens, right? And some of them sell it by the scoop. Some of them sell it by the yard. Some of them do like what you saw, like big deliveries and things like that. And all of it's economic. So you try to look at your price point. Everything might be like $20 a scoop or $30-something a yard. Every place is different. But you can approach them about buying it in bulk. And the reason why I encourage people to buy in bulk is that you actually get more for the same amount of money that it might take you to go buy multiple bags to fill up that raised garden box. So let's just say, this is just rough math again, like to fill like our standard 4 foot by 8 foot, 10-inch deep raised bed that we do at most community spaces. It's about 1 yard of material, right?
Okay.
So 1 yard kind of at a nursery to get it in bulk, it might only cost you anywhere from $30 to $50, right? Depending on where you're at and the distance to travel for delivery and all that type of factors, right?
Yeah.
But if you was to go to like a box store and try to get enough bags, so it might take you 27 2-foot cubic bags to fill up that same sort of box, right? 27 times 5 or 5, right? You're already over $100.
Yeah.
So just off of the fact of getting it in bulk, you're able to cut your costs down, And so we encourage most people to do that. But obviously, if you're only working off a 5-gallon bucket or, a couple small little pots, then you might say, well, I'll just go ahead and get the bag because for convenience sake and volume sake, that might work out better for you.
Who should I call to get it in bulk?
Yeah, so that goes back to what I said. I don't know where you're at in the world as you're watching this podcast. So that's why I'm more like if you find a local nursery, a landscape supply company, those are the two. Or even there are like companies that do like recycling where they might collect from like the city like wood chips, lawn like trash, leaves, places like that might do bulk as well.
Cool.
So first nurseries, landscape supply companies, and then you might just like type in and see if there's somebody locally. And some local governments actually do like a composting system where the local government is composting, and they might be willing again to let you pull up in a pickup truck, do a couple of scoops for a fee, so you kind of can work within. And then also, like where we're at in Southwest Georgia, we're surrounded by a lot of dairy farms, chicken houses, cotton gin mills, and they all are offering like where you can get like by the scoop about a yard some of that material to kind of like mix in and things like that. So again, just options vary, but first two places are always a nursery, the landscape supply company, and then it's just from there you might have to do a little bit of more local research to see if anybody's kind of collecting waste and just letting it sit but turning it to break it down into like a compost mix that you could use as an amendment to whether you're in ground or whether you're in a container, just to add to what you're growing.
Cool. So the last question we had on Facebook about this, they asked if you should do a direct sow or small pots indoors.
Okay. And so what I would say is going back to my rule of thumb is that grow what you like, right? And so let me break it down. Everything you truly can start from seed, but you will want to have certain things grow out longer in a pot environment based upon when you want to plant it. And so let me back it up. So from seed, this is my rule of thumb. This is what I do. You don't have to do the Fredo way, but this is the Fredo way. All right. So from seed, based upon the season that we're about to come into, more of a warm season, I love to do my corn, my okra, my squash, my cucumbers, mainly from seed directly into the ground.
Okay.
And then also like my zinnias, my sunflowers, and some of those directly into the ground, and I get it going. Now my peppers, my eggplants, my tomatoes, I like to get those from like baby plants already established, ready to go before I put them into the ground, just because it takes so long for them to grow out. So having them already established shrinks the amount of time. Now, there are a couple ones I put asterisk by because I like to get a jump on my neighbors and kind of show off my green thumb a little bit earlier than everybody else. So my okra, I like to plant that from seed, but to grow it in a transplant, to have it like a baby plant before I put it into the ground. Same thing with like my watermelons. I love doing them from seed directly, but I also like to get them started in the greenhouse early because, again, it's cool to have your melons growing. Same thing with like my squash. Love starting those early, in my zucchini. Starting them early. What I mean by starting early is just start them in my greenhouse in that soil mixture that we kind of talked about earlier. Get it going. So when mid-April comes around, I have my baby plants ready to drop into the ground. They might be a little bit like 2 or 3 weeks ahead of somebody doing something direct seeding. Cool. So it's all about that variable, those factors. But again, this is my way, my technique, what I like to do. And also I found I'll be quite successful doing that. But then once it gets into like mid-May, most of the things that I just named, you're better off starting it directly into the ground. And the other factor why I do some things from seed or seedlings versus in the ground is about the soil temperature. So a lot of times as we go on experience like this weekend, we have spells where it's warm, then we have spells where it's cold again, and the soil temperatures is fluctuating. So a lot of things that you want to start from seed, as far as the climate that we're in, the time of the season that we're about to get into, you want your soil temperature to be in about the 70-degree range to kind of help with germination of those seeds. If it's not quite in that temperature range, you're better off starting it at home in a greenhouse to be successful.
Cool. I think it's a good place to wrap it up here. That was awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I thank y'all.